Okay, so to end every week, I like to give my workbench a thorough cleaning. So I take everything off and just reorganize. And while I do all that boring maintenance, I'd like to talk about everyone's favorite topic, tools. I love tools and presumably you do too. We all experience a bit of gas, but we shouldn't lose our minds to every new shiny piece of equipment. So this is my workbench. There's a lot of stuff here. This is a system that's been working for me for quite some time. But with any workshop, it's constantly changing as I implement new workflows and new tools. The bench is like 80% of the way there. I actually have a few new tools to add onto this bench. The new tools I picked up aren't really that interesting. Some containers for solutions, a new loop, dust blower, screwdriver sharpening tool, case container, work mat, and cushioning pads. So this green mat is the very first mat I picked up when I started to work on watches. I thought it would be time to give this a new home elsewhere in the shop and replace it with a brand new one, which is very clean, no scars, just very green. So it's much more comfortable now to rest on this. It's kind of like, feels like jelly or some type of gel pad. I imagine this will relieve a lot of stress from just having a hard surface to work on all the time. So when thinking about purchasing a new tool, there are 3 main reasons and one that's kind of off to the side. Even with cheap tools, I'm confident that I could produce the same quality of work as if I used expensive tools. However, it'll just take me longer and be a bit more difficult. It's as if you tried to eat soup with a fork. Why would you do that? But putting aside how I feel and view things from a customer's perspective, if I'm sending a watch out to someone to work on, I would not only consider the skill of that individual, but also be interested in the tools that they use. Even though it's not strictly necessary, I would really appreciate it if the person that I'm trusting my watch with uses high quality tools to work on my watch. Tools are only as good as the person using it. However, let's say you need to get your car repaired and had to choose between 2 service centers. Assuming that the skill levels are equal, would you trust someone with a proper workshop or someone that's just working out of their garage? I'm also a strong believer of buy once, cry once, of course if budget allows. So with that mindset, I try to have the highest quality tools possible. As for the other reasons, there are 3 that I think about a lot when thinking about purchasing a new tool. The first factor is, does this tool improve the quality of my work? Or to think about it another way, does this tool minimize risk of damage? A tool that I invested in very early on for this very reason is my case back closer and opener. This tool is made by Bergen, a Swiss-made company that specializes in watchmaking tools, and this was a very big investment for me back in the days. Rarely do you have to put in a lot of force when working on watches. It's very delicate, but if you have a stubborn case back, you will end up putting a lot of force onto it. If you have a low quality case back tool, then you can risk slipping and scraping across the case back. I'm aware that there are cheaper versions of this tool. However, based on my experience with them, the replicas are only about 70% of the way there. Everything on the Bergen case back tool is nicely flat and very parallel to each other. If your teeth are not rotating parallel to the surface, then you could risk slipping and the teeth will grind across that case back. The tolerances and the fit and finish of the tool is just much better than the counterfeit version. So as someone who works on watches as a business, and also considering that this tool will be used on every single watch in my shop, it only made sense for me to invest in the best possible version. Another important factor when considering purchasing any tool is, will this tool save me time? Again, as a business, it's important for me to be able to work on watches at a relatively quick pace. That doesn't mean I'm rushing through and doing sloppy work. I want to take my time, but I also want to be efficient. The more efficient I'm able to work on watches, the quicker clients will be able to get their watches back. There's a lot of tools that fall into this category, but an easy example would be my screwdrivers and tweezers. Tweezers and screwdrivers have to be maintained, meaning you have to sharpen them every now and then. The quality of the screwdrivers and tweezers will determine how often you have to dress them. I use a combination of Bergen tweezers and screwdrivers in addition to Dumont tweezers, and the quality of steel you get with these tools is great because I don't have to dress them as often. If you get low quality steel, then you'll have to spend more time dressing them every now and then. The third factor that I consider when purchasing a new tool is largely influenced by my obsession and appreciation for nicely made tools. Just like how I appreciate nicely made watches, I also love nicely made watchmaking tools. One example of this is my Bergen hand press. So this tool is very expensive and it's not something that I really need. The pen style hand setters are what I prefer personally. This version 1 is just a nice addition and it's just fun to use. It's nicely made, it feels great, and it just looks cool. Of course, there are benefits. It's very functional and works very well. But if I had to choose between this and the pen style presses, I would choose the pen style presses because I have a lot more tactile feedback from them. So this is not an essential, but it just makes me happy using it and ultimately increases the enjoyment factor of the work that I do. Another tool that isn't quite necessary, but I think is a very good upgrade to your arsenal is a good workbench. Obviously, you can work anywhere, but again, would you want someone to work on your watches on a kitchen countertop or have a dedicated workbench? The workbench I used was sent to me to try out by FlexiSpot. For transparency, I did get this for free. However, I've been using another version of their motorized desk as my main assembly bench for many years already. I wanted to upgrade to this E7 Plus because its 4 legs are much more stable and has a greater weight capacity than conventional 2-leg options. It's much easier to do precise work due to the added stability, and I can have heavy tools on top without worrying about weight capacity. Also, considering the weight of my arms leaning on the bench, most 2-leg surfaces would suffer from some degree of rocking back and forth. With 4 legs opposed to 2, the E7 Plus does not suffer from noticeable wobble when high up. Specifically for watch work, I need my bench to be raised up so that parts are easier to see. But there are also certain tasks where I like to have a lower height so that I can access some of my larger tools without having to get up. The height adjustability and easy to use memory presets allows me to work comfortably and for much longer due to better posture. So the E7 Plus not only makes working easier, but also more enjoyable because my neck and back aren't feeling discomfort. Now this desk is also modular, so you can add accessories such as a cable management mesh and under-desk drawer. All of the cables for my power tools are nicely hidden and safe from catching on things when the desk is in motion. Tools and supplies that I don't need out all the time, but still want within arm's reach are easily accessible from the under-desk drawer. Amongst the choices out there, I found FlexiSpot to be one of the more budget-friendly options. The E7 Plus is a tool that provides me with a comfortable environment to produce better work. It is an essential component of my workspace and makes the experience of building custom watches that much more enjoyable. For anyone that's interested, there's a 15-year warranty, and I'll leave a link with discount code in the description box below. Now, just because a tool is expensive, that does not mean it's perfect and it may not live up to expectations. For instance, this is a very common cheap tool that a lot of people use, the infamous red twist style press. Now, it's not as good as my Bergen crystal press, which is why I purchased the expensive crystal press, but it's great for things where precision isn't really that necessary. For instance, when setting dive bezels, you don't need a perfectly parallel press. A tool that's relatively straight will do the job because the bezel will eventually snap into place. I do own the expensive version. This is by Horotech. If I had to be honest, I wouldn't really recommend this one. It fulfills basically the same purpose as the cheaper red one, and the results are pretty much the same for what I'm using them for, that is, and that's mostly to press on bezels. I don't do crystal work with these because they don't screw down flat, but for snapping on bezels and case backs, I think they're more than sufficient. So overall, I will invest in expensive tools if it benefits my work and makes my customers happy knowing that quality tools will be used on their watch. I may not necessarily need the expensive version. However, if customers are trusting me with their watches, I want to respectfully return that trust by providing my best work alongside the best tools I can afford. This is just how I want to run my business because I would hope for the same if I was a customer to someone else. Or maybe this is all just an excuse to satisfy my gas. So with that said, I appreciate you watching this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.